Hey guys, what's going on? GG here. We're going to be doing a quick video on Fortnite Battle Royale. This is going to be on the i7 2600 with the GTX 1063 gig. I just want to do a quick test of Fortnite for some potential buyers. Without further ado, here we go. I'm landing in here over here on Loot Lake. I'm getting triple digits on my frames. The game looks good, sounds good. But let's go ahead and grab some loot real quick, just in case somebody runs up on us. We got at least defend ourselves. Alright, so first things first, we're going to look at these settings. These are the settings that I found to be optimal for gameplay. We are in full screen mode, 1080p, because it's the monitor's 1080p. I went ahead and uncapped the frame rate limit, so we're getting unlimited frames. And we can see here we got view distance on epic, so you can see super far. We turn the shadows off because we don't want to hinder, you know, people. You can see more with the shadows off. That's just a preference as well, like competitive play, as well as actually giving us a boost in our frames per second. I turn the anti-aliasing on epic. This is what's gonna like make the players and everything like really sharp edge, so that if you see something moving, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna know it's a player. It's not gonna like mesh in or blur in with other pixels that are being rendered. We can turn the textures to high or medium. High is nice. Epic, and the difference between epic and high is almost negligible, and you're gonna stay in the triple digits with high textures. Turn the effects to low, and the post-processing to low. The effects and stuff, that's just like, you know, when trees are blowing or you're hitting a structure and harvesting materials and stuff like that. It's just not gonna be as intensive on your GPU. It's not gonna be all flashy and stuff like that as well. Post-processing, we'll leave this on low. And as you can see, it looks good. And we can get into like a more like high traffic area. Where like more stuff is happening, you know. And we can see the frame counter up there. We're getting, you know, 180, 190 frames. Pretty solidly, getting it even up into the 200s. So we're sticking around 150 to 200 frames. And we're building and we're moving across here, and still 150, 160. And depending on your monitor, your monitor's refresh rate, having all these extra frames aren't going to do much for you. So unless you have like a really high refresh rate monitor, you're not going to get the benefit of having all these extra frames. So you might want to stick to capping your frames to like, you know, 60 or something like that. And in that case, playing on Epic, you're going to get 60 all day long, which let me go ahead and we're going to cycle through all the different graphics settings. But this is the optimal for me. It looks the best and plays the best. It's good competitive settings as well. And if you see any choppiness in the recording itself, that's because the recording only goes in 60 frames per second. So if you see any screen tearing in the recording, like when I'm moving fast like that, you might see some screen tearing, and that's just because of the recording, not because of what I see on my screen. Is because I have a 120 hertz monitor, I'm seeing 120 frames per second, and the recording can only go so fast. Now let's cycle through all these. If we go to auto settings, it's gonna auto everything to Epic because of the graphics card. So we go back in here, and you can see there's a bit of a difference in what the overall game looks like. Like these trees are kind of moving around in the breeze and stuff like that. If we look over at our frame counter up in the corner by the map, you can see we're getting around 80 frames. Once we like move around a lot and it can dip down into the 60s, but as long as you're sticking around 60, that should be fine for PC gameplay, especially if you're on a 60 hertz monitor. If you got a really nice high-end monitor and you want to push 144 hertz, 144 frames per second, I would suggest using the settings that I had at the beginning of this video. So let's move along to high settings. Just do the high preset here and see how many frames we get. And just going from 60 to 80, now we're in triple digits pretty consistently. Every so often dipping down into the 90s, but triple digits looks good. Let's do some building here to kind of and this whole time we're staying in the the triple digits here. Every so often we'll go down to the 90s. Like if we do a quick spin like that, it'll drop down to 90, but no lower than that. And this is actually some pretty good settings here too, especially if you got a 60 hertz monitor. You're never ever gonna have to worry about dipping below 60 and missing any frames. So let's go ahead and do the medium. Now medium to high is actually you can actually tell the difference in quality. Maybe not in the stream, but when you're playing, you can see the edges are a little bit more pixelated. There's less polygons in the character and stuff like that going on. So So you might not be able to tell it, but yeah, definitely you see like the trees aren't moving around and stuff like that. That's why I like to keep lower settings, because like if I'm like scanning the horizon or like see something out of the corner of my eye move and it's just a tree, it's kind of annoying. So like if you do see something move, like for a fact that's a player. That's why I like to play with some settings on a little bit lower, and like turning the shadows off as well, to give me a little bit of an advantage if somebody's like hiding in the shadows or something. But we'll go all the way down to low. Now low is gonna look like poop, and we're really not even gonna see that much of a better frames. Like yeah, we are getting 200 frames like super easily, and characters and stuff aren't gonna render super far away, but we'll still be able to see them from a good distance. Like putting things on low and then your distance on epic, makes for like good competitive settings. So yeah, we're getting, the very lowest I want to say is going down to 160, 150 frames, and we're hovering around 180, 200, up to 200 frames in some cases. So that's low settings. And then, like I said, these are optimal settings for like competitive play right here. The game is gonna what was it that I needed to turn out? Okay. The game is gonna look good as well as play good. You're not gonna go under 100 frames. Actually, I don't think that actually applied for some reason. Okay, there we go. That looks way better. So these are the settings that I would recommend playing on. You're going to get around 150 to 160 frames per second. The game is going to look very good. You're not going to get the trees moving or like, you know, when you're scanning the horizon. So very nice competitive settings while still looking good if you decide to do a stream or something like that. Oh no, give me that. Okay. This gun is pretty OP. So yeah, view distance epic, shadows on off, anti-aliasing on epic, textures on high, effects on low, and post-processing on medium. VSync off, motion blur off, and we keep the frame counter on just to show our frames here. That's the recommended settings for this setup. You're gonna get beautiful high refresh rate. The game's gonna be optimized for competitive play as well, with the shadows off, as well as the trees not moving around and stuff like that. This is a good balance right here. You can even take it a step further and change the resolution of the game to 16 by 9 right here. And what's going to happen here is it's going to give us a few more frames, not a whole lot, but it's going to stretch out the game a bit. And what happens is the characters become a little bit wider because the frames are stretched out. So in high competitive play, a lot of players do this in order to get headshots and body shots easier. Just because, like, if we take a look at this pole right here and you see how thick it is, like compared to this circle, right? It's always going to be that size, right? Even if I put this circle on the top of it, even if I change the resolution down, it's still going to be that size. But when I do change the resolution back up to 1080, that it's going to be kind of hard to tell, but the character, as well as that pole right there in front of me, have gotten skinnier on my screen. If I go back, I turn this to 16 by 9 here. It's hard to tell, but that pole has gotten wider. So when I'm going to shoot and stuff like this, you know, like, it's just easier to hit because it's a wider target. Now your crosshairs change as well. It's just it's kind of like a psychological thing, as well as it's just easier to see that few, you know, couple inches or centimeters on the screen where you can see the player character and make a move on it, take your shot, you know. Oops. What am I doing? Well, but yeah, that's these are the settings that I actually play on when I do decide to play. and get in like a competitive spirit, you know, I do not play this game a lot, but just as a general rule of thumb for shooters, you lower your resolution down just a little bit to get that the wider characters that make it easier to hit headshots, and then you use settings like this to give yourself an advantage. So like if we look at that tree right here with shadows off and then shadows on, you can see that shadow there. So if you turn the shadows off, there's less of a place for people to hide. So the shadows aren't there at all. You get more frames, and then, you know, let's say they were wearing something dark, you might not have spotted them right away, especially when you get into a place with a lot of shadows. So, yeah, we're just testing stuff, man. But with these settings I got now, 150 frames, you're not really going to go much lower than that. It's going to look good. It's going to feel good. That's it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. But when I do, I'm going to go ahead and pull up everything just so we can prove that we're on the PC that we're saying that we're on. Oops. System here. So this is the i7 2600, 8 gigs of RAM, Windows version 1803. We are running the game off of SSD. We do have the 1063 gig here, and I'll just validate the processor again right here. So thanks for checking it out, guys. I hope this video showed you everything you needed to know if you specifically want to play Fortnite on this PC. That's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.